I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know what to say. Like, I try to remind myself when we're here at the front line with Joe and Joe, when I'm looking at stuff on across social media and everything. Okay, I like it could all get very angering. I have to remember. See, watching a video like that reminds me, not because I'm great, not trying to pass myself off that way, but reminds me that we need to pray for people because that guy's hurting. That guy's sick.
Dude, know who's even sicker? People paid money probably to watch him dive on the couch.
Oh, yeah. And the people that sit there like this and they go, wow, wow, that's brilliant. Joe, I've seen it. I've seen it with my own eyes. I remember something. I was an actor back in the day. I saw some pretty crappy performances where me and my actor friends were looking like this, kind of like what the hell's going on? And there's always that one, usually a woman in the audience watching this completely pathetic, terrible performance going, like that. It's like taking it somewhat seriously. Like I said, that dude needs some help. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello. We're going around the world tonight. We're going around the world with atrocities, okay? So stick around towards the end because we're gonna go to England, which really needs help, Ireland, which really needs help, and Italy supposedly is on the right path, but we don't know about Italy, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But in the meantime, all right, what I'm really like, the good thing about an election cycle, Joe, is that like all the what's the old saying? All the poisons that lurk in the mud, they hatch out. I remember that from I think it was from I Claudius or something like that. Anyway, so it's the media, all the poisons that lurk in the media, they all come to the surface. I will say this, even though I'm very disappointed in the GOP right now and everything else, there are people that don't care and will go right back at the left and not let them scream. You know who's good at that? What your friend Pierre Poilievre in Canada. Like when the left tries to frame a question, he goes, and they say, people say, and he goes, who said it? And they're like, well, no. Tell me you said it. Then he asks you. See, I like guys like that. I also like guys like this.
About Kamala Harris, I want to finish that discussion. Said she didn't favor a ban on fracking now. The reality is she was one of the strongest proponents of that ban, so much so that when she was in California, she sued the Obama administration over granting fracking permits. She didn't just favor the abolition of private health insurance. She was a co-sponsor of the bill with Bernie Sanders as a U.S. Senator for Medicare for All for Americans. The reality is, when you think about the Green New Deal, she was the chief proponent, not just as a co-sponsor of the legislation, but going further and saying she would end the filibuster in the Senate to ram that through. So the reality is she can say what she wants to say now. Those are actions she has taken. Is someone allowed to evolve? Of course they are. But she deserves to explain exactly why she's changed those positions, exactly what her position is. If it's not a ban on fracking, what exactly is it? What exactly is her healthcare plan if she no longer favors abolishing private health insurance, which just 4 short years ago when she ran for president, she did? And that's the kind of scrutiny that's been missing. I think Donald Trump has received plenty of scrutiny, and I give credit to him for sitting for hostile interviews that Kamala Harris has not.
Vivek Ramaswamy is one of those guys that he's just going to go right back at you. He doesn't care. He takes the gloves off. The reason why I'm saying I'm going to throw it over to you, Joe, is number one, I want you to get into Kamala and the fact that all these blue collar guys, Joe, got to vote Democrat. My grandfather voted Democrat. I don't vote Republican. That's for rich guys. Yeah, you're going to take it right up your you-know-what, union man, under Kamala Harris. You're going to take it right up your you-know-what. But let's start with this. Vivek, the RNC and the GOP need to learn something about how to talk to the press. That's a good clip that they could get a real education from.
I want to focus on 2 points that he brought up that have to translate to the middle class, whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat. Kamala Harris is against oil. That's what fracking. Let me translate that in those terms. What does that mean to the middle class? It means gasoline prices go up even higher than they are right now. That's a fact. Digest that. If you're going to vote for her, New Jersey gas is about $3.25. It averages between 306, 3.25, 303. It'll probably go up from there. So if you're comfortable with that, let's talk policy. You vote for her. Second point, Kamala Harris, and she has said this both before she was the nominee for president and now. She wants universal health care. What prevented Barack Obama from succeeding in Obamacare, believe it or not, was the unions. And let me explain why. Because he needed the buy-in, the monetary buy-in of every single working adult, and he couldn't get it from the unions. A big supporter of the Democrats is the NEA. It's the largest union in America. The moment that Kamala Harris tries to take the teachers' medical benefits away, because that's what she's saying there, please get that through your head before you vote for her. Let's look at things in a sober manner. They're going to not vote for her, not support her. So again, if you're in the middle class, whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, whether you hate Donald Trump, whatever is your reason, and I'm not vacationing with him, to be honest with you. There's many things about him that I don't like, particularly his pro-choice stance. It's not as radical, and the church does allow me to make a better, what do you call it? Like the lesser of two evils.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm talking money. If you're in the middle class, what she is for, and this is not my words, these are her words, your gas prices are going up. And if you have any type of union benefit, she's going to try to take that from you, because she cannot give universal health care to everyone without every single adult paying in. That was Obama's deal. If you're for that, then vote for it. If not, at least be educated when you pull the lever.
I'm wondering what all these pro-death, pro-baby killing teachers out there, not all of them, okay, but certainly their union leadership is. Are they gonna advise their rank and file? Are the Teamsters? And by the way, one of the Teamsters spoke at the GOP convention. The head of the Teamsters, okay, I forgot his name. He spoke at the GOP because he probably understands exactly what you're talking about. Okay, I'm going to put it like this to you. I have a brother, a sister, a mother, and a father. My father's dead. Back in the day, my father worked for Consolidated Freightways. Okay, if you told my father he's going to give up that medical plan that we had, that paid for everything that he paid for, okay, through his company, through his employer. If you told him you tell any of those guys they're giving up that plan to go into a universal health care plan that a government official is going to determine whether or not you get health care. I had this argument with my uncle, who's God rest his soul. This was a few years ago. My uncle got cancer. I said, and this was during all the Obama care stuff that you're talking about, Joe Resinello. My uncle got cancer. My uncle's cancer treatments, he wound up beating the cancer at that time, okay? And he lasted another 10 or 15 years. But here's my point. I said to him flat out at my mother's kitchen table, and he was all for Obamacare, Joey, Obamacare. I said, Uncle Pat, please do me a good Obamacare. I said, you had cancer. How much would your cost of care have been? Oh, well over $100,000. How much did it cost you out of pocket? Oh, only about $1,500. I said, but that wasn't Obamacare, though, wasn't it? It wasn't Obamacare. That was your private health insurance that you got because you were a retired teacher from Long Island. Or else they might have said, you're too old, Pat. Sorry. You can't get that cancer treatment at 75. In the meantime, he lived to 88 because he got the cancer treatment. Okay. He lived another 10 or 13 years. So my larger point is this. Are all these union people, are they going to go for this? Because that's what she's Obama on steroids, Joe.
No, I know that. People don't think, though, Joe. And that's why, again, I try to break it down into money. That's what you're pointing out, and you're right, because we're seeing that in other countries, like in Canada with the MAID program. We've seen this in England with little children, Charlie Gard and others that have been allowed to die. So my point is, but that's sadly, people can't see past their door. I try to break it down, unfortunately, just in dollars and cents. You're 100% correct. They don't want to see past their door. But I don't want the government to control my health.
No.
To be honest with you,
no.
At all, ever, never, because it's a recipe for disaster. But if they're going to do it, they have to take union benefits away. So again, if you're voting for her, know what you're voting for. That's all I'm saying. And let's be real and let's look at things like adults. That's it. It's just that simple.
Well, okay, but here's the thing. See, people. This is what I don't like is when people do that whataboutism. Well, you people do it on the right. No, I don't. I'm pissed off at Donald Trump. I'm pissed off at J.D. Vance. I'm going to vote for them because, like you said, Joe Resinello, the other side is absolutely insane. But Trump is stabbing us. I feel like Julius Caesar in the middle of the Senate floor. We're getting stabbed by him and J.D. Vance and the GOP, watered down the whole pro-life platform in the GOP position. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. Then my recommendation is, and I think I posted it on X the other day, I'm going to vote for him. But the pro-life movement and the people who know us, who have their eyes wide open, people like us and many like us, people who join us here at the front line with Joe and Joe, got to hold his feet to the fire. Let me tell you something. He was about to say that he was going to support voting against or voting for that amendment, that abortion amendment in Florida. And Lila Rose, God bless her, was correct. She goes, when you put pressure, watch what happens. And pressure was brought to bear on Trump. He says, you're not going to go and vote for that. DeSantis has the right template in place, at least for now, a 6-week abortion ban. Okay. And Trump backed off on it. I got to give Lila Rose credit. She's right. And that's what I'm going to do if he gets elected. We need to keep putting his feet to the fire. When he does something that goes against us, that stabs us in the back. Now, my larger point is we're willing to do that. We're willing to let him lose politically, let's say in the passage of legislation, to fight against what we don't want. I don't know that the Democrats are going to do that, Joe. The unions are all controlled by party apparatchiks. The party apparatchiks are going to give Kamala whatever she wants, maybe even more so than Obama, because they realize they're actually giving it to Obama, and they might get away with it because this is Obama's 4th term, and he doesn't even have to put his name on it. All he's got to do is point the finger at her. So it's like a big game that they're playing. But my point is, you made a very good point. There's a lot of people who are not going to allow this to happen. The rank and file union members don't have any power, Joe. It's the people that run the unions. And I'm questioning whether or not, I mean, of course, they're going to support Kamala Harris, but if it comes to the point where she's going to want to universalize healthcare, which she might take a stab at if she gets elected, and she's got enough people in the House and the Senate to ram it through, are the unions going to go for that? I don't know.
I don't think they will. Just because of I know teachers. My mother was in the teachers union, dude. That's all they care about is their benefits, and they do have a say. And I don't think they could. I don't think they can do it. To be honest with you, because if the unions are pretty strong, frankly, the Catholics should act more like the unions. They're stronger than our own belief, which should unite us. In a more aggressive manner, if you ask me, but that's another conversation for another day. I don't think that they can. I think that's an empty promise, truthfully, but that's I just bring it out there for the simple fact that's either here nor there. People should know to accomplish that, they have to take away your benefits. They have to. And I'm just saying, and people should know that.
I'm going to throw it right back to you. Here's my fear. They know it's a political loser. They know that she knows, just like Obama knew with Obamacare. Remember, the Tea Party came about and came to power because of Obamacare. Okay. It was a reaction to that. And he went ahead and did it anyway. Okay. And he got most of what he wanted. Now, he lost many battles along the way. Don't get me wrong. Here's my point. We know that they're willing to stab their own people in the back.
No, I know. I don't think, again, I just don't think they'll get their votes. You can't cheat enough. If you take the NEA, we'll just use the NEA, you take away their benefits, I guarantee you they don't vote for her. All they care about is the lottery ticket in their hand. And I hate to say this because I come from New Jersey. The only thing that keeps New Jersey blue are pensions.
Right.
New Jersey is not as blue as what people think, but what it is, because I grew up here, it's a lottery ticket. Many of the people who have these pensions, frankly, if they didn't know somebody to get this job, they'd be working at Aldi's for $14 an hour. That's a fact. They have no skills whatsoever. A lot of them. I mean, I've seen this my whole entire life. Nepotism. People get these jobs. Their cousins on this board. They're this one. Get this job. He's a cop. He's a this. He's a garbage man making $75,000 a year with great benefits, pension for life. These people, if they didn't have those connections, Joe, they wouldn't have a job.
No,
the only
Joe,
reason, and that's why they wouldn't vote for it. You would lose all of that. the second that that's gone. And that's why it's not realistic. It's an empty promise. It's a platitude. It never is going to come to pass.
Well, I said this before. Listen, all these union guys and all these union women, all these teachers, they want pro-choice, that it's my body, my choice. Well, Donald Trump's giving it to you. So why don't you start voting? Why don't you start voting something in your interest? You want abortion? Good. Trump is serving it up to you on a platter. But if you vote, and this is what I would tell any one of them, but if you vote for Kamala, see, Trump's not going to take away or even begin to threaten your health benefits that you get through your union. He's going to encourage it. He's going to try to make things easier for you. Okay. So he's giving you your abortion. He's giving you your rainbow flags. He's giving you your IVF. You're winning on that. You're winning. That's Joe and I saying you're winning. Okay. So let's get it straight. But now if you go vote for Kamala Harris and she takes away your health benefits, shame on you. Here's another thing, Joe, where you talk about people just need to open their eyes. Open your freaking eyes.
Of everyday needs like healthcare and housing and groceries.
We're going to end America's housing shortage. You just let in over 10 million people illegally, and you put them all on housing vouchers and food stamps and gave them free plane tickets and free cell phones, and all of them have to live somewhere. You caused America's housing shortage. If you care about the cost of housing, limit the population. Certainly don't expand it through uncontrolled immigration, through open borders, which is exactly what they did. She's responsible for it. And her donors at BlackRock are buying up the houses in your neighborhood. And her donors at Airbnb are turning your neighborhood into a completely unmanageable garbage, a place filled with transients where there's no social connection at all between people. Those are her donors. Those are her policies. For her to lecture us on the housing shortage that she caused, it's almost too much. I can't sit here.
And he's right.
Too bad people dismiss that statement because Tucker Carlson is saying it, which is sad. But he's 100% right. Allowing 10 to 22 million people, depending on who you talk to, into the country was a direct assault on the working class and the working poor, because they're taking your jobs and they're causing the rent in your neighborhoods to go up. And Tucker Carlson is 100% correct, and a good economist, whether he's blue or red, will tell you the exact same thing. That's not an attack necessarily on me. It's an attack on the working poor and the lower middle class. It has raised the cost of houses. I've seen numbers almost $100,000 across the board in America. Again, that affects the working poor and the lower middle class. And they say they're for those people. Again, first of all, is the press asking those questions? No. Secondly, we should be asking those questions to ourselves and thinking a little bit. We're not. And this is not the Democratic Party of RFK or his dad. And people can't, Joe, it's sick. I mean, I go through this every single week, and I'm not going to beat the dead horse. But all I'm saying is we have to start looking at these ideas, their platitudes, most of them, and dissect them. How are you going to execute on that? And what is that going to affect? Particularly, is it going to affect you and your family? And if you are in the middle class, or if you're in the lower middle class and working poor, you are going to get bulldozed, and you're getting bulldozed right now.
Now, here's the thing. Here's I want to throw out a couple thoughts real quick, Joe, at the front line with Joe and Joe. Thanks, everybody, for joining us here. As always, Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time. You know what I'm going to ask. Wherever you're watching this, help us out. Share the video. Hit a like, hit a subscribe. We got all our usual suspects. Caro Bene's in there. Antonella, Bob, and several others. Scott's
Sylvan.
with us. Hey, Scott. What's that?
Sylvan.
Yeah, Sylvan. But let me ask you this. None of this, see, you're right. And where am I going with this? Okay. You're 100% right. Why? Because you're my partner in crime over here? No, because you're right. Okay. I think there's a lot of idiots. I don't like doing that, Joe, but it's just a fact. There's a lot of idiots out there who, just like you said, they don't care about anything or anybody. They got their 75 grand a year job. The biggest value of their job is that they don't pay for anything. They don't pay for a pension. They don't pay for their medical benefits. I'm on my second hip surgery. Thank God my wife has good benefits as a teacher here in Arizona. Okay. Because I got both hips paid for minus a $1,500 deductible. So you're right. But I think a lot of people do get it. That's why they have to cheat. That's why, because the Democrats know what you know. They say, these guys aren't going to go for that. Right. And if you actually run on it, if the press did their job and demand that you hold multiple debates, Kamala, that you have to sit there in front of a hostile interviewer and you have to answer tough questions, okay? That's why they shelter her like they sheltered Senile Joe in 2020 and kept him in a basement. They want us all to believe that a guy could campaign from his basement and win more votes than Barack Obama. They want us to believe that, okay? So, but here's Kamala again. If where I'm going with this, a lot of people do have their eyes open. That's why they want to put the kibosh on social media. They want to put the kibosh on free speech because of things like this that might get put out there.
But also what they can do around best practices and best machinery. We are talking with them about the fact that it is probably best that you do not have your election system connected to the internet, because that will create greater vulnerabilities. And then look at where we are now in this year of our Lord 2018. We're talking about paper ballots, but that actually might be one of the smartest systems. Going back to, a day when we could have something tangible that we can hold on to, because Russia cannot hack a piece of paper.
And then she's got to end with Russia. Now, that was 2018. Are they going to play her now? Are they going to play that on CNN or MSNBC? Are they going to play that so the American people could see that she knows in her heart of hearts, just like all the Democrat operatives, all of them, all right, whether they're running or whether they're advisors, all of them know they're cheating. All of them know why they're doing this. But they will never play that clip.
Republicans know too. All the oligarchs know. Do you know that Haiti requires ID to vote? Do you know that Iraq requires ID to vote?
Mm-hmm.
This is a recipe for disaster. The only person on the internet that's really hammering it home is Elon Musk. He's saying it constantly. He's basically saying having no ID and not having in-person voting is a recipe for disaster. He's 100% correct. I'll even up it. Ballot harvesting is legal, which means that you can go into an apartment building and say, please fill this out, get about 100 votes, and then put it in a drop box. 30 states legalized drop boxes. That's legal. How could you possibly look at the outcome of the election, no matter who wins, and say this person won when those things are in place, legally in place? They shouldn't be. There was a time when you voted by mail, whether you were in the military, in college, or you were infirmed. That's correct.
That's it.
That's it. And they've normalized this. And basically what it's going to result in, if you ask me, no matter who wins, by the way, is violence, because no one is going to believe the outcome. And that is all on the oligarchs. We should never, ever, ever permit that as a nation. I can't believe we did. And I blame the Supreme Court because they had an opportunity to put a kibosh on it after Pennsylvania changed the election laws, which is against the law, because all election laws have to be voted upon by the people. They usurp that in the name of an emergency, as they always use an emergency to basically go outside the bounds of democracy. And in doing so, they put the whole system in jeopardy, which means lives are in jeopardy. Let me be clear. People are going to get hurt and possibly die. And they are doing nothing about it. It should be absolutely addressed. That's the number one issue. That it's not addressed, I find it to be appalling. And we're in the same company as Venezuela and the former Soviet Union. This election is going to be a farce and a joke because of the process that they put in place, and it's all legal.
No, Joe, listen. It's all legal. And like I said, I mean, I know it sounds like we're beating a dead horse, but I think many people should continue to beat this horse. The media has to we have to figure out. Let's put on our party hats for a second. Or let's let's put on our movement hats. We're conservatives. Conservatives need to figure out what they're going to do legally to go back and push back against the press, to force them to do. Market forces don't seem to be working. CNN's ratings are in the crapper, okay? Nobody wants to watch CNN, but it doesn't seem to be working, okay? Republicans boycotted CNN and then they decided to go back on because they were begged to do so when they should have stayed boycotted. They should have said, we're not coming on your channel. We come there, and then 5 minutes after we're off the air, your anchors, Brian Stelter, whoever it might be, calls us racist. See, we have to figure out, because like you said, Joe, people do know these things. They're not getting the information. And if you are a person like us who says you're supposed to get the information, that's a whole other issue.
Sought to regulate social media platforms, presidential candidate Kamala Harris and vice presidential candidate Tim Walz have both repeatedly endorsed the three main censorship tactics used by the Brazilian government: censorship of election misinformation, deplatforming of political opponents, and 3, cross-platform bans, so that a person is banned not just from one social media platform, but from all of them or most of them. Obama stressed that government regulation has to be part of the answer. In his speech, Obama praised the aggressive social media censorship that the European Union is currently pursuing through its Digital Services Act, or DSA. Said Obama,
"The way I'm going to evaluate any proposal touching on social media and the internet is whether it strengthens or weakens the prospects for a healthy, inclusive democracy."
it would be difficult to overstate just how radical Obama's proposal is. America's had a standard for evaluating speech since 1789. It's the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
So we could leave it there because you hear it right from the horse's mouth. I wish people would understand there is no such. This is where you're right, Joe Rossinello, because the uniparty needs to, or let's call it the our end of the uniparty. People who are supposed to be responsive to people like us need to get their heads out of their butts and start getting into law. They need to take the words hate speech out of federal law. That's what they need to do. It doesn't exist under the United States Constitution. And what Michael just said, we have a standard. It's called the First Amendment. We have a Supreme Court decision, because you could logically say, well, if I incite violence, or if my language leads to violence, like yelling fire in a crowded movie house, that could be regulated. But outside of that, hey, Mr. Government, hey, Mr. G-Man, shut the F up. You can't shut me down.
Joe, it's not even hate speech. They even have a term for it. And we talked about this in other shows, malinformation, which basically says the information is true, but it threatens democracy. Let's break down the word democracy, because Barack Obama mentioned it. What he's basically calling democracy is not the democracy that people identify with. I'm using the word identify. When people think democracy, they think of the people. It's an institutional democracy that he's referencing, and it does threaten the institutional democracy, because the institutional democracy is at war with the true democracy, which is the democracy of the people. And it's business as usual for the institution. And when you have voices on the air, like our voice, we don't have the same platform as, say, Russell Brand or Tucker Carlson, but we do have a platform. And people hear interviews like they just heard, or you hear it right out of the mouth of Barack Obama. I listened to a clip today from Kamala Harris. She basically said she wants to double the size of the DOJ and mandate that social media platforms regulate their platforms, mandate it,
Right.
which means is she's cutting off your information. And that information is information that you're an adult and you should be able to A, hear it, and B, process it for yourself. They don't trust the people anymore. They're not saying that, but their actions say that. I don't trust you to make the right decision, so I'm going to make it for you. We know better than you. It's like when Barack Obama talked to that plumber. No. You don't understand. No, Barack Obama, I kind of do understand.
No, you don't understand. You don't understand.
Well, actually, he does understand. That's the part that makes it evil. You see, there are people that don't understand, whether it's because they're not getting the right information, or frankly, you know, they don't have the time to look into certain things. I'm just trying to be kind.
Or they've never had they've been career politicians and never had a real job.
But he understands. He knows what he's doing. That's what makes this evil. And that is why, again, let's get our terms correct. It has nothing to do with democracy the way you see it. It's an institutional democracy. And yes, it does threaten that democracy. And that's a good thing, because the institutional democracy does not represent regular people.
Well,
Get that through your head. You're not part of the country club.
but when you say malinformation, see, a lot of this gets us frustrated here at the front line with Joe and Joe. But Joe, there is a hopeful aspect to this. Okay, I'll throw it out to you. Well, let me confirm for our audience here at the front line with Joe and Joe what you just said.
Privileges, and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation.
Oversight or regulation, but who creates the oversight or regulation? Is it going to be you and 9 other people like you, Miss Harris? Is that what it's going to be? Are you going to have Tucker Carlson on that board? Are you going to have Elon Musk on that board? Or is it going to be you, Dick Durbin, Jerry Nadler? Is it going to be Eric Swalwell and all your horrid crew? You're going to tell us what needs to be regulated. But when your lying scumbag friends in the mainstream media, when they go on and lie like a rug on social media, by the way, because they're all on social media, Joe. They're all on Facebook. They're all on YouTube. They're all on X. Even though they hate X, they're all on there. When they go on there and lie, are they going to get taken down? Are you going to take them down when they blatantly lie, when they could be fact-checked and they blatantly lie? Something tells me, Joe Restinello, I don't think so.
No, Joe, and here's the thing. It's right out of the horse's mouth right there. We're adults. We can process information. I give you credit, and you should have all the information. She's saying that right out of her mouth, that I cannot afford to have you hear certain things. Because if I do, it has nothing to do with malinformation, misinformation, hate speech. It's information that threatens the power structure. And we can't have that. That's what she's saying. And here is the thing which people are missing, who maybe even will agree with what I just said, who just happen to be on their side and are voting for her because they like the outcomes. Eventually, it will be used against you. I said this to my wife today. If Kamala Harris becomes the president, and say we get 16 years of this type of nonsense because they manipulate the vote, they manipulate the system, eventually what will happen is people will get fed up. And I'm going to give you a case in point. It happened in Argentina. And it just happened in El Salvador. And they tried all of the nonsense, probably even more so, on steroids in El Salvador. And he got 85% of the vote. You are going to create a monster. You're going to create a leader who is everything you say Donald Trump is and isn't. That's what this outcome is. Because if you believe everything I just said and you're for it anyway because you're for DEI, you're for whatever your deal is, abortion, you're for whatever your deal is,
Right.
and you know that this isn't just, but it works for you at the time, eventually it's coming at you, and it's going to come at you on steroids. History shows that to be the case. I just gave you 2 instances in the here and now where that happened, and it'll happen here. And that means they're coming after you. And I don't want that either. All I want is equity and justice. That's it. Open forum, all information, all voices heard. I trust you. You're an adult. Make your decision. Let the better person win.
Oh, hey, listen, you're speaking the truth. You're speaking that truth over here at the front line with Joe and Joe Restinello. Please, wherever you're watching this, X, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, please like, subscribe, share, help us out, do all that fun stuff that we always ask you to do. We don't ask for much, and we're always very appreciative of all of those who show up Thursday nights 9 o'clock Eastern time to chat with us. Now, here's the thing. I don't know what it is now, especially. I always said that it was because of abortion. I haven't heard, unless you could tell me, Joe Resinello, I haven't heard any statement on judges that if Trump made any statements about is he going to nominate to the federal judiciary and or the Supreme Court the type of judges that he nominated in his first term, in which case I feel justified in my vote for him. But he hasn't said anything, all right? But he seems to be giving them what they want. He seems to be going obviously into, as we talked, like he's actually promoting IVF. He could have just kept his mouth shut. He's actually promoting abortion. He could have just kept his mouth shut, but he's not doing that. Okay. But I still, and the reason why I ask is because now I heard this from you for quite some time. Okay. I don't know why everybody out there needs to hear it from those who have a larger platform than us, when they could just come right here to the front line with Joe and Joe, and they could hear it for themselves, that they will not allow him to be president.
What are the odds that Joe Biden has a debilitating event between now and November, including death? So he runs a 1 in 20 chance of dying in any given year or above, that I don't think you know whether he's even going to make it to November. Debilitating event could have been a debilitating public event.
I purposely left it vague, and I didn't say the other part of it, which I now feel comfortable saying, which is I don't know whether Donald Trump will be allowed to become president.
What do you mean by that?
I think that there's a remarkable story, and we're in a funny game, which is, are we allowed to say what that story is? Because to say it, to analyze it, to name it, is to bring it into view. I think we don't understand why the censorship is behaving the way it is. We don't understand why it's in the shadows. We don't understand why our news is acting in a bizarre fashion. So let's just set the stage, given that that was in February. There is something that I think Mike Benz has just referred to as the rules-based international order. It's an interlocking series of agreements, tacit understandings, explicit understandings, clandestine understandings about how the most important structures keep the world free of war and keep markets open. And there has been a system in place, whether understood explicitly or behind the scenes or implicitly, that says that the purpose of the two American parties is to prune the field of populist candidates so that whatever two candidates exist in a face-off are both acceptable to that world order.
I seem to remember somebody on this show saying something right along those lines. The fact is, and this is the only conclusion I could draw, and I'm sorry, all of you out there, if you're tired of me talking about it, okay? Like I said earlier, I think it was an appropriate analogy. I feel like we're Julius Caesar and we're standing in the middle of the Senate and we're getting stabbed by Trump and Vance and all the Republicans, okay? But Joe, one thing Trump is not, and this is the only thing left, and Eric Weinstein just alluded to it. Trump's not a globalist. He's not.
And that's
I really believe in my heart.
No, he's not. He's not.
And remember, Eric, he talked about open markets. I'm going to throw it right over to you, Joe. Eric Weinstein talked about open markets. Okay, fine, open markets. Let me tell you something. The stock market was still open during World War I. And the stock market was still open during World War II. And the stock market was open during Korea and the Cold War and Vietnam and Iraq Part 2 and Afghanistan. The markets are always open, Joe. Okay. The money, like you say, money turns the wheel. All right. So we got that. Okay. But the one thing I'll say is that where Trump is, but even in those markets, even in times of war, the military industrialized complex, they make a lot of money through those markets. So I guess it's that two things, and I'll throw it over to you. Trump's not a globalist, and Trump will keep us out of war, and that's why he's not. They don't want him.
First of all, Eric Weinstein's an economist.
Yes.
He's not some random freak that's talking. That's number one. Number two, he nails it. You see, the divide isn't the Republican Democrat divide. If you're a working person, if you're in the elites, it doesn't matter. When I mean elites, the top 5% of the nation, you're worth 5 million and up. It doesn't matter who the president is because you got tons of money. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, they divide the nation on issues, hot topic issues that basically polarize the populace, and they will not allow a president like a Donald Trump. And he snuck through in 2016. And because of that, they put in all of the election laws so that never happens again. That is why you get the Nikki Haley's. That's why you get the George Bushes. That's why you get the Barack Obamas. Barack Obama played ball. You could listen to Cornel West. He'll talk about how Barack Obama betrayed the African-American community in America. He played ball.
That's why they're trying
And
to shut
that
him
is
down, by
what
the way.
people have to see. What people have to see and unite around the fact that our government does not represent us. And that's what they fear. And that's why Kamala Harris wants to censor, because she knows if everyone hears those type of statements and actually believe it and aren't just dismissed as some crazy person wearing a tin hat, some conspiracy theorist, but someone who's intelligent and actually sees the landscape as it is, when the populace sees that, they're finished.
Right.
And that's why they have to censor. And that is the goal of why I am here and why I do what I do. Because I like to think I do see it. I never did. I didn't see it the last election. But the more that I listen to more voices out there, random voices, not just conservative voices, many voices, I see exactly what that man is saying. And that's why the establishment loved Nikki Haley and hated Donald Trump, because Donald Trump and RFK, and they're very different, but the thing they have in common and why they have united is this: they are not for the establishment. They're speaking against the establishment. They're both pointing out things that a lot of people make a ton of money on, like war, like big pharma, like big ag, and that is not allowed.
No.
And
And that's
is
where
what-
you're right about the uniparty.
and
because
this
the
is where
Republican-
people have to see it, because
Right.
your enemy, even if you disagree with your neighbor, you're both in the same economic bucket. You both have to pay $4, $5 for gas. And because you live in the same neighborhood, you make around the same amount of money.
Yeah.
But guess what? Jake Tapper does not live in your neighborhood.
He's not your neighbor.
Sean Hannity is not your neighbor either.
He's not
And
shoveling.
this is
snow.
where people, and this is again, it's almost like when everything and everyone sees what he just said, it's going to click. It's about it's and if you ask me, Joe, because of the internet, because of Elon Musk, and because of Donald Trump, who opened the kimono to what has been going on in America maybe for 5 to 7 decades, all the way to the New Deal. Maybe this is the beginning. Maybe after this election, this farce we're about to witness, more people are going to open their eyes. And then when we get to the El Salvador point, where 85% of America sees exactly what Weinstein just talked about, that these people don't represent my interests. They don't care about my family, and they never will, and they're driving me into the poorhouse. And when we look them in the eye and they know, we know what they know, they're finished. And
Well,
that's what we gotta get.
we could hope. I would tell you this what's that, Joe?
We need to get to that point as a
Well, we got to
nation.
get to that point. I agree with you. Like, and I was like, leaving aside all the issues that are, of course, near and dear to our hearts, and many people out there, obviously, as Christians, things that we were appalled by, like abortion and everything else, but just on a purely like taking the country back type of level. I mean, if people had that moment that you're talking about, if we had that awakening, there's a couple of things that would happen. I'll give you a few big ones right off the bat without even giving it too much thought. First thing that's going to happen is that the media is going to be kept in check. Second thing that's going to happen is that all the institutions that receive federal money are now no longer going to receive federal money. What do I mean? Higher education, teachers unions, public school unions. Okay, it's all gets Department of Education gets shut down. EPA gets shut down. Those are big things that can happen. Close the border. Another big thing. All right. You want to get on the right path? Of course, we need to turn to God. That's the first step that people should take. I could see people rolling their eyes as we say that. So leaving the Almighty aside for just a moment, no disrespect, Lord. On a political level, yeah. If we have that moment, we start doing things like that. But free speech has to flow. Money has to stop flowing. Okay. And power has to start going back to the states. Now, there is hope. Okay. And I wanted to mention earlier, just very briefly before we do a little around the world. By the way, did you see a video? And maybe somebody out there who's listening to us at the front line with Joe and Joe, where I believe it was just a regular guy, a regular Canadian was questioning Justin Trudeau on the price of gas or
I actually did see it.
Could you tell our audience about, maybe tell me, Joe, because I saw that, Joe, and what I saw in that clip is everything that you bring out at the front line with Joe and Joe. Their arrogance, the arrogance and the elitism with which he spoke to this gentleman who was just asking about the high prices of living.
Well, he basically just like he was your everyday man, and he tried to basically bulldoze him with stupid facts, and he didn't move, he didn't budge, and he basically was just like, listen, I work real hard. I can't pay my bills. I can't do this. I can't do this. And he was polite. He was basically like, I don't agree with anything you said. Everything you said isn't translating. And Justin Trudeau basically at the end of the conversation just dismisses him like, okay, sir, I wish you well. No, sir, you work for me. You see, this is what these people don't get anymore. You work for me. I don't want the government in my life. This is another thing. I'm perfectly fine working for myself, just doing my thing, take care of my family. What I want the government to do is provide liberty, safety, and basically a soft infrastructure. Outside of that, we got to take care of ourselves in life. We all have to do our thing. And there is always going to be some level of inequality. And if we have a Christian nation, people will pick up the slack. Obviously, you have to have certain safety nets. I'm not saying take away Social Security. I'm not saying take away Medicaid. I'm not saying taking away basic like unemployment insurance. These are good things for the society. However, there's always going to be some inequalities. Government's never going to create a utopia. When you create a utopia, you create a disaster. History proves that to be the case. And basically, when you try to create a utopia, you create a government that has too much power, and it basically lords the power over you, and it makes you a slave. History has proven that to be the case as well.
You know who else said that aside from an Italian like you? An Italian like Giorgio Meloni.
I'm 45 years old and I am the president of Fratelli d'Italia, the political party of Italian conservatives. Governments have not been the outcome of what the citizen chose by voting, but rather have been the outcome of agreements often under the table between the same parties that were fighting each other in the electoral campaign. In these 10 years, the left, which has failed to win elections in Italy since as far back as 2006, has managed to stay in government almost all the time. In a democracy, normally those who lose elections should go to opposition. For too many years in Italy, those who lost elections find themselves in government, achieving very bad results. We want Italy to return to being that great nation, dynamic and innovative, esteemed all over the world, that strongly contributed to European civilization.
She gets it. She gets it. And she calls it like it is. If you lose politically, now you could still be in government, but you're part of the losing coalition. You're part of the minority coalition. You know who, funny enough, said that at the time It was 2004, and Bush was running against Kerry. And John Corzine, who I don't like, talk about elite of the elites, okay, running Goldman Sachs and all that stuff, okay. John Corzine said, well, if Bush wins, I don't know whether he meant it, but he said, if Bush wins, and he was the senator at the time, he goes, if Bush wins, I'll be a member of the loyal opposition. See, those days are gone because that's actually an American idea. Okay, I'm the loyal opposition. I oppose you. I oppose your policies. I'm going to make my voice known. The Senate and the House are supposed to be deliberative bodies. You're supposed to debate these things. I always found that to be fair, but Corzine turned out after that to be a real winner. So I apologize for quoting him, but he was right. Georgia Maloney's making that point. When you lose, you don't stay in government. You don't get to stay there. You lost. Now get lost. You want to be vocal? Go and run a campaign. Be part of the opposition that's opposed to my policies. But you lost. The people have said they want our government, and we're going to propose the policies that we said we were going to run on. See, the problem with the left is, Joe, and I'm going to throw it over to you. They can't run on the policies that they propose, because when they do propose a policy, they're lying. We know that because Kamala Harris is flip-flopping on everything, okay? And they can't say what they really believe in because they won't get elected dog catcher without cheating. What's
that ultimately circles back to what Weinstein was saying, because in order for the wheel to keep going and they're all on board with the wheel to keep moving, you're not accounted into that wheel, by the way. They have to lie. And they can't give you information, and they spoon feed you what you can, quote unquote, handle, so you vote for them. That's how politics has worked for years in America. And that's why the internet has put basically a fly in the ointment. But getting back to basically the people and politics, we have to form our people better. And what do I mean by form our people better? A healthy people vote for healthy leaders, and our country isn't healthy. And why isn't it healthy? Because our family structure is fractured. You see, countries like Hungary, who are rewarding families for having kids and staying together. You see, you put polyism, you can't have a theocracy. This is a pluralistic society, but you should encourage all religions, because all religions have pearls of wisdom. We'll break it down in a simple, and again, I want everyone to be Catholic, but I'm realistic. America is a pluralistic society. You encourage religion. What do? Religion teaches morality. Even if you go to a storefront church in Newark, love your neighbor. You're hearing it on Sunday. That's a good message, right?
Right.
Families. Reward families that don't get divorced, because divorced families create wounded people, and wounded people wound other people. Reward families that stay together. Reward families that go to church and can prove that they give money to the church. Give them tax breaks. Reward families that have children. You stay married for 10 years, you get a tax break. You stay married for 15 years, you get a tax break. You stay married for 20 years, you get a tax break. Because families that are together and worship produce healthy people. Not perfect people, healthy people. What we're seeing in America today, and I see it on the streets of New York, is an unhealthy people. People are smoking marijuana at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's not the party. You're self-medicating. Something's wrong. You're a wounded person. People who are healthy don't get high at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. You see people, all types of people, lost in these crazy realities that they construct in their mind. Healthy people don't do that. And this is what the society has to create. You see, that's where, if you're thinking about how to make things better, sometimes you don't have to say what you want the outcome to be, but you put in place the building blocks to get there. And that's something that Viktor Orban in Hungary gets. Family and strengthening families and encouraging people, not forcing. Please pay attention to my words. I'm encouraging you to go to church, and I'm going to reward you with tax breaks if you show me that you give money to your church of choice. And if you get married and stay married, and if you have children, I am going to reward you. Not so you could send your kids to daycare, but I'm going to reward you to stay married, because
Right.
people that stay married and have children and worship God, not only do they live longer, that's a fact, but they produce healthy people, not perfect people, but people who understand some semblance of the golden rule, which improves society. And then we have better leaders. And
Well,
that's
I don't know. I don't know what happens. I mean, the Soros machine must be a very powerful machine. Of course, we know that it is, the WEF and everything else, and how they've infiltrated all these nations. And I'm sure they're working on Poland and Hungary. They've taken down Ireland. Nobody is going to convince me that the Irish people all of a sudden, and again, I will say that the Catholic Church and the leadership in Ireland dropped the ball for a long time. And they lost their moral authority because of the sex abuse crisis that happened in Ireland. That's not me. We never bring that up on the show, but that's a fact. I would be, if I'm an Irish parent, okay, I'm going to be a bit distrustful of the Catholic leadership in there, in Ireland. And on that, okay, because to me that's infiltration of the church. Then you had infiltration of a Catholic society, a Catholic culture in Ireland. But nobody's going to convince me that the Irish people are so pissed off, okay, at the Catholic Church that they're supporting puberty blockers and mutilation. Not only that, but they're supporting the arrest and incarceration of those who speak out against it. Enoch Byrne.
Has a right. I've right to be here. And
You're arresting
not
him.
to tell students they need to tell puberty blockers.
You're arresting him
Not
because
to
he
tell
won't
students
endorse
that they need to take
transgender
puberty.
Here at Wilson's Hospital School, Enoch Burke, teacher, been arrested for not accepting transgenderism.
Nor should I. And I'm not going to turn my back on my duty to my students.
I'm not going to turn back on my duty.
No, you don't have a duty to do what's wrong.
No, you never
and to
have a
bring me
duty to
before
do
the
what's
court. To bring me before the court. No, to bring me before the court.
This
This
is
is
a
disgrace.
disgrace.
Children are being taught to tell a young boy.
Surgery.
Yes, surgery, mutilation.
Yes.
Mutilation.
It's a
And
disgrace.
so- mutilation.
Disgrace.
Mutilation.
An absolute disgrace.
You're telling a boy that he's gender neutral.
Let's leave it there. It goes on like that. Joe, that's a brave man right there. He's speaking up for what's right.
Oh, there's
He's
no doubt about
sacrificing
it.
himself. Listen, there's a reason why. So you always think in your mind, like, let me give you an example. Martin Luther King, okay? He's a good example. He's an American example. He gets arrested for doing what he believes to be right and what objectively is right, fighting for the civil rights of African Americans in the South. Goes to jail, okay? Because the law says you have to go to jail. And he was willing to do that in order to raise the consciousness of people as to what the plight of African Americans was in the South. Now, I don't care what you think of Martin Luther King, but that action is a good and moral action. Okay. He sacrificed himself. He went to prison, actually wrote letters from the Birmingham jail, and raised the consciousness of the American people as to what was going on in the South. Here, is his name Burke or Byrne? Enoch Burke, Joe?
I'm not sure, to be true.
Yeah, I think it's either Enoch Burke or Enoch Byrne. I apologize for those of you out there here at the front line with Joe and Joe. But he's willing to do that exact same thing. Something's got to get done to raise the consciousness of the people of Ireland, along with America and the rest of the world, especially when it comes to the mutilation of children and puberty blockers. But my larger point is that this man, he's probably Catholic. I'll bet dollars to donuts that he is Roman Catholic. He's a teacher, and he's telling the cop, I don't want to turn my back on my students. And he's saying, well, I'm not going to turn my back on my duty. I'm going to enforce the law, and you're going to jail. It's unfortunate. But let's pray for him that action is going to help the Irish people to start a backlash against the oligarchs that are really tearing that country apart.
Joe, ultimately, and I'm going to use a phrase that it's maybe going to put some people off, it's demonic. What he's talking, this is demonic. Like, listen, I'm not for adults making that choice because I think it's a bad choice. People who basically try to change their gender, first of all, they walk into a medical situation that is for life. Secondly, they don't live long. because the expectation that they thought they were going to reach is never, ever achieved. They become disappointed, they become depressed, and many of them kill themselves. However, I digress. When you're talking about a child that you as an adult should basically help and instruct and guide, this is demonic. That is pure evil. And you talk about forces behind that are nothing but possessed. Yeah. Some people hear that, they're like, oh, you're crazy, Bible thumper. No, no. Evil exists. The devil is real, and that's evil. Straight up and down. And any adult that says to me that they support a child, an adult sitting across from the desk from a 14-year-old confused and wounded child, and encourage and support such a decision, something is radically and seriously wrong with that person. Yeah. And I am sorry. And I'll go to my grave saying it. It's evil. And I would rather pick up garbage with my hands before I did that for money to tell the kid. I'd rather pick up garbage with my hands, and I'd come home and wash myself up and be proud that I worked an honest day's wage before I lied and encouraged to save my job and or what's it called? Go along with the crowd so I don't get disinvited to the cocktail party.
Right.
It's evil.
It is evil.
Period. End of story.
It's absolutely evil. Joe, this was a great conversation. It was a conversation that we all need to have. Now, all of you out there, don't go. We're going to leave you with a 2-minute clip of some Gold Star families. We think it's important. Hey, look, I'm still going to campaign for Trump, and I'm going to hold his feet to the fire. Okay? I'm going to vote for him because, like we said, Kamala and Tim Walz, who waves like this, something's wrong with that dude, Joe. Okay, they're insane. They're evil. You just said it. They're evil. What's going on with Enoch in Ireland? What's going on in America? What would happen to Mark Houck? Okay, at the hands of the Justice Department, all the January 6 people that went down there for a peaceful protest and got lumped in and got sucked in to a government staged insurrection, and they're in jail because Merrick Garland says you're going to stay in jail and telling everybody you'll go to jail too if you open your mouth. This is all hopefully going to come to an end. I hope these Gold Star families do to Kamala Harris what the Swift boat veterans did to John Kerry, okay, back in 2004, okay? Show her for the disrespectful person that she is. Don't blame Trump because they invited him to go to Arlington to go and honor those 13 fallen service people, okay? Don't blame him because Biden doesn't return phone calls. Biden doesn't want to talk to people. We know he can't talk to people. Kamala's not going to do anything about it. So don't blame them because they invited Donald Trump, and Donald Trump went. And John McCain's son actually had the audacity to say that Donald Trump used Arlington, Joe Resinello, as a campaign prop. And then immediately somebody put online, John McCain, when he ran for president, did the exact same thing. He did a clip of himself walking through Arlington National Cemetery. Anyway, Joe, this was a great conversation. Please, wherever you're watching this, stick around for the clip. I'm going to play it for you. Like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Help Joe and I out as you always do. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.
Vice President Harris.
Vice President Harris, my name is Steve Nakui. I'm the father of Lance Corporal Kareem M. Nakui.
My name is Jim McCollum. I am the Gold Star father of United States Marine Corps Lance Corporal Riley McCollum.
This is Mark Schmitz, Gold Star father of Marine Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz.
My name is Darren Hoover, and I'm the Gold Star father of United States Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover.
My daughter-in-law, Sergeant Nicole Leanne G., was killed in the Afghanistan exit at Abbey Gate.
Our kids were murdered because of your administration.
You were not at Dover for the dignified transfer. And no time have you reached out to me to offer your condolences, to offer thank you for Kareem's sacrifice and service.
You have 13 families who have been waiting over 3 years to so much as get a phone call, to so much as hear our kids' names said aloud.
You failed for 3 years and 8 months to acknowledge our kids.
Where were you and Joe Biden on August 26, 2024? Nowhere near Arlington Cemetery. You couldn't be bothered to be with us or even say our kids' names, just as you had done for the last 3 years.
Vice President Harris, I ask you, why won't you return a call and explain to us how you call my daughter-in-law's death a success? President Trump has called. President Trump shows up. President Trump takes the time to hear our loved ones' stories.
We invited him to be there.
These are the only memories we get to make with our son, and it is you who is playing politics and trying to detract from our memories made that day.
President Trump has been there for us. He's been a rock for us. He showed compassion for us, and he showed he truly cares for the families that truly do know what the ultimate sacrifice really is.